Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Elliott Ware, and here on my channel, I like to cover a wide range of content and concepts from finance to fitness. And in today's video, we're going to be going over a topic that's very exciting, and we're going to be discussing, something that really combines two of my favorite activities, finance and reading. And we're going to be covering Rich Dad, Poor Dad today by Robert Kiyosaki. This has been branded the #1 book on personal finance, the best book like on finance, money, stuff like that. And it really lives up to the name. Great book just about building wealth, building up your personal finances. So we're gonna be covering over some different topics, some different gems that Robert Kiyosaki shares in this book. Before we start it, I appreciate it if you give this video a like, if you like it or take something away, as well as subscribe too, just to be locked in with all the future content that I got coming. Also leave a comment too for any kind of videos that you want to see from me, or just to leave a message. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the review. Get started. In the book, no, Robert Kiyosaki doesn't have an actual rich dad and an actual poor dad, and he talks about this in the book. The rich dad is actually the father of a friend, a childhood friend of Robert's, and the poor dad is actually Robert's actual father. So throughout the book, he tells stories from the rich father's perspective, as also shares some perspectives of his actual not so rich father, right? And kind of contrasts that throughout the book to display, okay, these are the money moves you should make and should avoid, and this is how you should go about kind of approaching money, like the rich dad. And really the rich dad is kind of the representation of the rich and the wealthy, and kind of what they do with their money to kind of put themselves into good financial positions. And that's where we all want to be, right? Good financial positions so that we can be financially free, financially independent, and just do better with our money. So I guess for starters, the first thing that I took away from this book that really kind of cascades down to the rest of just the content is that it's not about how much money you make, it's actually about how much money you keep. And what that means to me is, we can make all the money in the world, right? But if we don't have the money management mindset and the financial literacy mindset to manage that money correctly, we're not gonna have it very long. So it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep into avenues and streams, that return money for you and that bring money back to you that you can live off of. And then that's how you achieve financial freedom, independence. And Robert Kiyosaki puts it, get out of the rat race. Another concept that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in the book is that the rich, they don't work for money. They have money work for them. And they put their money into things called assets that return revenue, return value, and return income back to, the purchaser of the asset. And Robert Kiyosaki highlights this a ton in the book, the difference between an asset and a liability, covering both as well as contrasting them against each other. And it's super important to know the difference between an asset and a liability so that we're making better, more conscious financial decisions, and we know how to discern one from the other. Some good examples of assets are things like, real estate that provides a rental income, so property, building, as well as stock, so like Amazon stock, Google stock, putting your money into those as well, and then they provide, that return over time as the stock grows and as the company grows. And also we have mutual funds / ETFs, which I've covered on this channel. You can go check the video out there. And mutual funds are basically like funds made up of a wide variety of companies in various sectors. And by buying into the ETF, you can buy into a little piece of each company. So as that collection of funds in the index and index fund kind of grow over time, so does your money. And that's a really cool part, right? A very beneficial thing about ETFs is they're more securable and reliable, because you're going off a group of stocks or the performance of a group of stocks instead of just the performance of one stock. Some examples of liabilities are cars, clothes, things that depreciate over time. I know sometimes there's a debate on whether a house is a liability or an asset. In my opinion, a house is definitely an asset because we all need somewhere to live at the end of the day. Sometimes really the difference between an asset and a liability can just be, how you approach it, from your money management standpoint. Sometimes someone might look at something as an asset, and then other times people will look at something as a liability. So I say all in all, it's all about just being able to discern, what's gonna lose money and what's gonna make money, at the end of the day or over time. So recap, assets make money, put money in your pocket. Liabilities lose money and take money out of your pocket. In addition to assets and liabilities, Robert Kiyosaki also talks about financial statements in the book as well, and the importance of knowing how to read one, knowing how to build one, and using that to kind of track your finances. So some common examples of financial statements that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in the book is a balance sheet and an income statement. So your balance sheet is basically, again, we were talking about assets and liabilities a second ago, and your balance sheet is a great way to track those. So you track your assets against your liabilities, and you want to see where they balance, right? If they balance completely, that's a good thing because you have a balanced set of assets and liabilities. But at the end of the day, it's all about building up that asset column, right? Building it up with income producing assets such as your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, your real estate portfolio, things that bring money back into the house, into the pocket. Also, you want to keep your liabilities column as small as possible. There are certain things we have to, spend money on, things like house, car, food, the necessities, right? And it's always good to keep track of those, balancing them against the assets to kind of see, what your balance sheet, what your balanced portfolio is made out of. Along with the balance sheet, you have your income statement. And this is well connected to the balance sheet as well because, incomes and expenses are reflective of assets and liabilities. So, in the income column of your income sheet is where all the money's coming in, right? So that's coming from your job, obviously, but also as well as your assets too, because assets are income producing. And so when you're looking at your balance sheet versus your income statement, the assets in the asset column directly integrate into the income column of the income statement. So you can kind of see directly that the income producing assets are driving the income to the income column, which is what we want. And that's why we always want to build out our asset column as much as we can, over time. Also, when you're talking about your balance sheet versus your income statement, the liabilities column, again, this is why we want to keep this small. Liabilities column directly integrates into the expenses column. So if you're keeping your liabilities column down, you're keeping your expenses column down in your income statement. And that's a good way to just save and build your money over time, not putting so much of, your money into your expenses. So again, income statements and balance sheets are great ways to just track your financial assets and your financial kind of numbers over time and balance with each other to kind of see what's going on, right? And you want to be knowledgeable about this stuff so that, again, you can make those good financial decisions over time and know the difference between an asset and a liability, know where your income is going, where your money's going, so that we can track it and do better with it. In addition to, financial, technical, kind of tangible concepts like stocks, bonds, assets, things like that, Robert Kiyosaki discusses kind of characteristic intangible traits about the rich and wealthy, such as, how they deal with fear, how they mitigate fear, and, with any kind of investment, any kind of financial endeavor or business endeavor, there's always a level of fear and risk with that too, right? And Robert Kiyosaki actually talks about just overcoming that fear, and one way of doing it is doing as much research as possible, kind of know what you're getting yourself into as far as an investment. And another quote from the book that sticks out to me is, it's not a gamble if you know what you're doing. So with that being said, basically, if we're making a big financial decision or a big decision in general, if we're kind of as aware of the layout as possible and what we're getting ourselves into, that's not really that big of a gamble because we're kind of aware of what's going on. Robert Kiyosaki talks about having a belief in ourselves and a confidence that the rich have that the poor don't always have. And it is this kind of belief in oneself that the rich have that kind of drives forward their financial and really just life success. And I completely agree. I believe we should be confident in ourselves, confident in our abilities to do whatever we want to in this life, as well as learning how to deal with fear and overcome fear, because, we all deal with it at one point in our life or another, but we shouldn't allow that to hold us back from accomplishing things we want to do in this life. I believe financial literacy is super important, and I wish it was talked about more. I wish it was talked about more when I was in school, kind of in my classes and stuff. And I feel like if I had been more knowledgeable, had more exposure to this kind of terminology and I probably could have made better financial decisions earlier, put my money into, income producing assets, and, just had that money still building over time. But hey, the best time is right now to start anything or kind of move forward with a goal or a dream. And that's what we're doing right now by discussing, by learning, by reading books such as Rich Dad Poor Dad, and kind of learning these financial money management principles so that we can all do better with our money together. And that's a big thing, getting into that good financial position and getting into that, financially free, exiting the rat race, as Robert Kiyosaki says. If you enjoyed this video, I really appreciate it if you give it a like. Also, thank you for staying to this part of this video. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave a comment for any kind of books that you want me to read or workouts that you want me to do, or videos that you want me to make, as well as subscribe to for all the future content that I got coming, as well as to check out some of my previous content. Again, we read Rich Dad Poor Dad today. My name is Elliott Ware. I thank you so much for checking out this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.